Hi, I'm John F. Allen. And I'm R.J. Sullivan. And we're the Two Towers.
Greetings and welcome to the Two Towers Talk Show. I'm your host, Tower 1, John F. Allen.
And I'm Tower 2, R.J. Sullivan.
Today we're going to be discussing Wonder Woman, the 2017 film directed by Patty Jenkins, and Wonder Woman 1984, also directed by Patty Jenkins, which came out on HBO Max just last month in 2020. We have a special guest, and I'm going to let RJ do the introductions. Go ahead, RJ.
Thank you, John. I'm very excited for today's episode. This is one of my favorite topics. I'm a big Wonder Woman fan, and I'm very excited about our guest. Danielle Muething is my audiobook narrator. We've known each other, almost 2 years now, right?
Almost 2 years, yep.
Yep. And so our first collaboration was on my book, Haunting Obsession, which had a Marilyn Monroe-like ghost. I just put that out as a open audition, and I believe it was Danielle's third book that she was auditioning for.
Correct.
She was a big Marilyn Monroe fan, which attracted her to it, and I listened to her audition, and that was that. And we are 2 books later. She has done My Haunting Blue, and coming out very shortly, finally, Virtual Blue was 6 months delayed. I won't get into that, but I'm very excited that that's coming out later this month. So watch for all that on my Facebook page. But Danielle and I have been collaborating for a while, and I also want to thank her because we had another guest lined up who I think would have worked out as well, but she had to cancel out 24 hours ago. And Danielle, who I knew was a big Wonder Woman fan, was like, yeah, I'll do this. So I think we're going to have a great show today. So Danielle, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, as you said, I am an audiobook narrator. I started doing that about 2 years ago. I started performing on the stage. I have a musical theater background, but I have, obviously with COVID going on, I haven't been able to do live theater. But I kind of stepped away from being on stage a couple of years ago, started into audiobooks, did more directing, backstage stuff, things like that. And then I also sing for nursing homes. So that's I love to perform in any way possible. And so that's kind of my background about me. Yeah.
There you go. And she's done some fabulous promotional videos for Haunting Obsession as well, where she does some singing. So that's a lot of fun. You can look those up on my page. So that brings us to the topic at hand, John.
Yes. So before we get into discussion of the films, I thought that maybe we would talk about comic book history, our memories of the iconic Linda Carter television show, and how this is played into our expectations for the movies, for both the first one and the second one. So I think that since I have the ball, I will go ahead and take it and go into comic book history. So just so you know, in case you didn't, for whatever reason, Wonder Woman has been around for a long, long time. The character first appeared in All-Star Comics #8 in October of 1941, with her first feature in Sensation Comics #1 in January of 1942. And the Wonder Woman title has been published by DC Comics almost continuously, except for a brief hiatus in 1986, which I will go into a little bit here in what we're talking about. So basically, the character's been around for a while and was created by an American psychologist and writer named William Moulton Marston and artist Harry G. Peter. So Wonder Woman was a very important comic book character because she wasn't the first superheroine, but she is the most recognizable superheroine by far. And a lot of that had to do with when she appeared, which was during the height of World War II, and the fact that she was fighting for the red, white, and blue, as it were. There's a lot of propaganda behind her in the comics at this time because of the war that was going on. So, and then you had her fighting alongside popular male characters such as Superman and Batman, which were two of the most widely known comic book characters at that time, superhero wise anyway. So you had this going, and one of the things, another important thing about Wonder Woman as a comic book character is that representation for DC Comics focuses itself on a trilogy or a trinity. And that trinity is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And she's a part of that trinity. And she's one of the most iconic DC Comics characters that they've ever created, that they've ever had. And she still endures to this day. One of the things that I will talk about personally is my introduction to Wonder Woman. So I'm 50 years old. And back in 1973, when I was 3, I started watching cartoons. And one of the cartoons that I watched religiously every Saturday, because back then kids would wait to Saturday morning cartoons was a thing. I'm just telling you right now, if you didn't know, that's what we did. We went through a school week all Monday through Friday and then woke up early in the morning on Saturday just to watch cartoons for like all the way into the afternoon. It was crazy. So anyway, Super Friends was a DC Comics cartoon animated series that was based on the Justice League, which starred comic book characters Superman, Batman and Robin, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and their 2 teenage cohorts, Wendy and Marvin. Yes, that's the deep cut. And Wonder Dog. So
not the ones that people remember.
Yeah, right. You know, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find the Wonder Twin people. You know.
Oh, I thought they kind of stood the time a little better, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, it was the 70s, so you know, bow chicka wow wow, you know. But anyway, one of the things about the Super Friends for me was that it introduced Wonder Woman to me. And it was from that point when I turned 5, when I started to actually read and collect comic books, that I started collecting Wonder Woman comic books. And I thought, wow, you know, this is just awesome. She's really cool. You know, I mean, she was, as a cartoon character, she was like the statuesque female. And, you know, she was pretty to look at, like, wow, you know, she was a wonder. So anyway, I remember from the comics, I remember that there was a television show and it starred Kathy Lee Crosby. Now, I didn't know who Kathy Lee Crosby was. I was 4 years old. I had absolutely no idea who this woman was. All I knew was that she was blonde and Wonder Woman wasn't blonde. And I didn't like this show at all. I was like, who is this lady? Why is she blonde? Why is she calling herself Wonder Woman? This isn't, I went to my mother. I was upset. I mean, you know, I was like, I don't understand. Why did they put this blonde woman here? Her hair is black. I mean, what's going on here? I mean, and she said, well, you know, sometimes they change stuff. I was like, well, I don't like it. And I'm not watching it, you know, and I didn't. So anyway, we have the Wonder Woman television show starring Linda Carter. Now, this particular show was something that a lot of us in our of a certain age will remember. The Wonder Woman TV show it starred Linda Carter. Now, a lot of people before Wonder Woman did not know who Linda Carter was. I know I didn't, but I was a little kid. So that being said, all I knew was that she had dark hair, she was tall, and she had blue eyes, and she looked just like the Wonder Woman from the Super Friends, better, in fact, because she was a real person, and I had a crush on her. That woman could have told me to jump off a bridge, and I would have done it. So that being said, the show ran from 1975 to 1979, and the theme song was so iconic that, you know, everybody of a certain age can recite it from beginning to end. Just, I mean, it's so catchy. I mean, it's been used in other media and stuff like that. So
I could, but I won't.
right, yeah, we'll spare our viewers and listeners that. but
but Danielle was warming up, I think.
But this show was revolutionary because it was also at the height of the feminism movement you had back then at that time, you know, Helen Reddy and a bunch of other people who were fighting for equal rights for women. And this was the 70s. This was coming out of the Vietnam War. This was trying, you know, love, peace, happiness, love, soul, you know, it was the whole thing that was going on at that time. And if you weren't around, you wouldn't understand. But anyway, so this became another foray into the character that sold me on her. You know, as a character, I was hooked. You know, every week it was like Wonder Woman's coming on, leave me alone. I'm sitting in front of the TV, you know, quiet as a church mouse, just watching. You know, it was awesome. So later on, much later on, after the series was off the air, in 2000, from 2001 to 2004, we had Justice League, the animated series, and that was another interpretation of Wonder Woman that I found to be very interesting. She was much more powerful, much more warrior-like, and, you know, just an overall badass. Not that she wasn't badass before, but this was a different type of badass. This was like, you know, you guys don't have anything on me. I'm a class. And it wasn't about her being a woman. It was about her being a warrior, and she was just in a class by herself. And they recognized it, and they recognized it in the show, which was another thing that made the show memorable. So from 2001 to 2004, we had the Justice League animated series. We also had Justice League Unlimited animated series, which was a continuation where they introduced more DC characters into an ever-growing number within the Justice League, and she was also a prominent character. That was from 2004 to 2006. And then in 2009, we had Wonder Woman in her animated feature. It was a movie, animated movie, and that was, I liked that a lot. I thought that this was like, wow, you know, because Batman and Superman had their movies. Oh, so many animated movies and television shows and all this kind of stuff. And it was good to see her get her shine. But then 2 years later, somebody thought it was a bright idea to make a Wonder Woman television show and set it in modern times and make her the CEO of some company and have her running around in pants and a leather jacket.
David E. Kelly.
And yeah, David E. Kelly. Now, I don't have a problem with David E. Kelly when he's doing cop dramas, because that's where he excels.
Right.
He should have left Wonder Woman alone. Now, I don't have anything against the actress Adrienne Palicki, who played the show. She was not Wonder Woman to me. The wig looked horrible. But anyway, needless to say, that show did not do well. It was a pilot and it went nowhere. I mean, they didn't even air it, but like for half a second, it was pulled down. You had to pirate it on the internet, and it was just horrible. So this was a time when Wonder Woman was making a transition in the comics, and they were trying to capitalize on this, but it failed miserably. So from screen credits after the failed 2011 pilot, we have 2017's Wonder Woman, a actual film that was directed by Patty Jenkins and stars Gal Gadot in the leading role of Wonder Woman. And this was a smash hit. And it was a smash hit for not only Patty Jenkins' directorial talents. But it was also a smash hit for the writing involved, the time period, and the actress portraying Wonder Woman. Now, there's a lot of controversy about her. She's Israeli. They were like, why wasn't she an American? Well, technically, Wonder Woman's not American because she was from the mythical Greek island of Themyscira. So in other words, she wasn't American. Just because she wore red, white, and blue didn't make her American by origin. But of course, you've got dumb people who have no clue. Anyway,
you're going to be hearing me say that a lot today.
Right. And so considering that Israel is right off the Mediterranean and you've got Greece right there, she's the closest iteration that actually fit what Wonder Woman is actually supposed to look like. And to me, she had the olive skin tone, she had the dark hair, she had the features, everything hit. So I think that, and then a lot of people were kind of like body shaming her because they say she was too skinny. She is very slender. Naturally, she's very slender. And they put her in a gym like they do most actors, and they bulked her up. And a lot of people, unfortunately, short-sighted, misogynistic males decided that her breasts weren't large enough and wanted to compare her to Linda Carter. But when you put a picture of Linda Carter and Gal Gadot next to each other after she'd been to the gym, the only thing, and this is going to be a shocker, the only difference is that Linda Carter was a bit more endowed in the mammary glands than Gal Gadot. And that's like, what are you thinking? Why is this such a big deal? Why are you making such a...
Who cares? Yeah.
It was just dumb. It's like, that's all. That's what your argument is?
If you look at Gal Gadot and you're like, well, her boobs aren't big enough, then you're missing the rest of her.
Right, exactly. You're missing the fact that this woman served in the military. She has a warrior's demeanor, and she portrayed this. But she also portrayed the other side of Wonder Woman, the compassion, the hope, the love, and she did it so well. Now, I'm not saying that Gal Gadot is like this Oscar-winning actress at this point in her career, but she showed some potential here in this film that can carry her through her career in other films and she's young, she has some ways to go, but people were discounting her for so many different reasons, and I felt like it was not only ignorant but very unfair and just really just hateful. And I blocked a lot of it because it was just crazy. But going back to the comics, Wonder Woman, as we know her from the golden age in the 40s and 50s to the silver age from the late 50s throughout the early to mid 80s, was very different, very much grounded in the comic book lore, as it were. But in 1986, something happened. DC Comics decided that they were going to have a 12-issue miniseries that was going to clean up a lot of the continuity problems that they were having from comics that carried over from the 40s and beyond to present day. And it was called Crisis on Infinite Earths. And in this, at the end of this, and this is not going to be a spoiler. If you have, the comic is 35 years old. If you haven't read it by now, shame on you. Anyway, Wonder Woman died at the end of that, but she was reborn. And she was reborn when retconned to be much more warrior-like. This was the start of this, and much more tied to the Greek mythology. And this was where artist and writer George Perez stepped in on his run from 1987 to 1992 with the comics. And then 3 years later, a significant run by John Byrne from 1995 to 1998. And this is a big turning point for the character that you see in the movies that we're going to discuss from her comic book past. And a lot of the significant changes to Diana post-crisis is that she debuted within the context of the new revamped DC comic characters much later. So Black Canary was around before her. She came in as the newbie. but she was much more of an ambassador for Themyscira, which was something that was not really touched upon a whole lot back in the day, but now is a big focus. It was also a big focus during the animated series run. And another note in the comics is that after Crisis, post-Crisis, all before Crisis happened, she had this ongoing romance with Steve Trevor from the TV series, the comics, you know, all of that. Well, post-Crisis, they made Steve Trevor some old dude, and she was not she was not romantically attracted to him. It was more like he was like that uncle, you know, Uncle Steve, and not Bo Steve.
Yeah, it was Steve Trevor and Etta Candy that ended up having the romance, which I thought was a neat change.
Right. And a lot of things changed with the character in very old stages. Up into the New 52, she gained superhuman abilities such as flight. Before, she was flying around in an invisible jet. Now she can fly under her own power at great speed. She can cast magical spells. She has greater physical strength. She's going toe-to-toe with Superman now. And she can also manipulate lightning, which also goes into the retcon of her origins, which is going to be described in the movie too. Before, in the very beginning, Hippolyta, her mother, Queen of the Amazon, she wanted a child, and she wasn't able to have a child because there were no men on the island. And so she scooped up some clay and formed it into the resemblance of a child. And she asked mighty Zeus, king of the gods, to give this life and give her a child, and which he did. Zap, boom. Okay, now it's changed. So Zeus was married to Hera, right? So anyway, he snuck out, and
as he does,
and straight up the old-fashioned way got Hippolyta pregnant, and she had Diana, and Hera was not happy. So this was a whole different thing. You know, of course, we have to put into perspective, comics probably, I would say, before Crisis were really for kids. Comics after Crisis were much more for adults. So kids don't even read comic books like they used to. This is an adult thing now. So the stories are a lot more adult. So you see sexual themes and things that you wouldn't see prior to this. So anyway, this created a bunch of division between the Amazons and Hera and all of this, but it also gave a lot of depth to her to Diana's character. And another notable change, and then I'll hand this off, is the costume. So before, you had this very, I don't know what you want to call it, chauvinistic or whatnot, but it was just like, basically, we want to see breast and we want to see ass. And that's what we saw in Wonder Woman. She had on star-spangled panties and a bustier that just accentuated her female parts, and she's very scantily clad. This was the thing, you know, they changed that and put her into more warrior-like garb and armor. And this was much more in tune with someone who's a warrior. They gave her a shield and a sword and changed her whole demeanor, you know, in a lot of ways. That she was more fierce in her interactions, her actions, her mannerisms, even to the point where at one point when she was forced to kill Maxwell Lord, she snapped his neck. And just so you would know that she sacrificed and killed her position of not killing, because there was no other way to save millions. And this was something that put her in this precarious situation to show you the depths of how far she went, but also to show that she was a different Wonder Woman. This was not your mom's, your grandmother's Wonder Woman. This was somebody new. And I'm sure that you guys have some thoughts on that. I will say this before I turn it over to you guys, that I thought that was a very pivotal moment It has happened to all three in the Trinity. All three have had to kill someone in the comics, and they stepped outside of the not kill, rule to save humanity or to save someone else against a relenting force. And it was about the writing, making the characters a little bit more grounded and dark. It's not that I liked it or didn't like it. I thought that it was appropriate for the story that they were trying to tell. But, then again, like I said, these stories are not for kids anymore. These characters are written for adults. So what do you guys think?
All right. So
with that being said.
Yes. Danielle, do you want to talk about your experiences with Wonder Woman up to the movie before I do? Okay, go ahead.
I was trying to remember if it was Super Friends or the TV show that I saw first. I know both of them were something that I used to watch, but I want to say that I really don't remember. My childhood is all one big blur of things that happened to me. So I'll just say that I too was a Saturday morning cartoon kid, and Super Friends was one of my favorites. I love Superman too. Batman's cool. He's my of the three. He's number 3. But Wonder Woman, of course, was my favorite. And the TV show, I was obsessed with Wonder Woman when I was a kid. I mean, I'm a girl, and here's this woman that is so strong and so powerful and so beautiful. And it's like, yep, I want to be that. And so I watched the show religiously. I had I still do. I have Wonder Woman. I have so much Wonder Woman stuff. I had so much Wonder Woman stuff. Underoos, definitely a staple to my wardrobe. And if I could find some in my size now, I would have them. So I was very much obsessed with the movie. I wasn't a big comic book kid. When I got a little older, I kind of got into comic books, and I've read some Wonder Woman, but I will say some because there's so much out there. And I kind of like every once in a while, I'm like, oh, I should read another one, and I'll pick some up and I'll kind of read through them. But I don't think I could go toe to toe with anybody to talk about the comics. Although I have read some of them. But yeah, the TV show was really, really my big thing. And then when that, it's funny, that TV show that tried to come out in, what was it, 2011? Was that it?
Yes.
Oh, I was so happy it didn't. Because, yeah, I watched that 30 seconds that they aired, and I thought, oh no, please don't make this happen. So I was really glad that one didn't happen. Of course, I always want fellow actors to have jobs, but I was like, she'll find something else. This doesn't need to happen.
And then she did. Yeah.
Right.
She was fine. But
yeah.
But then I remember when the movie, they started talking about the movie, and I was like, this isn't gonna, I don't know. I was very doubtful. I was worried because of, I don't know, the pilot and all the other things. I had heard so many people talk about, oh, these people are writing scripts, and oh, these movies are going to happen, and nobody had done it yet. And I thought, it's going to be tough, especially for those of us who were so obsessed with Linda Carter and trying to find someone to fill those beautiful boots, and I remember the first time I saw Gal Gadot, I thought, well, she's definitely gorgeous. Like she fits that part of it. I liked how athletic she looked. I liked that part of her. I thought it was so silly about the boobs. I'm like, I get it. Linda Carter has these curves that go on for days. But like I said, my God, you look at Gal Gadot and you're like, that is one of the most, Edda has that line of, oh yeah, and she still isn't the most gorgeous woman you've ever seen. I mean, she's just so beautiful. And, but I was still like, okay, we'll see, Miss Gal. Let's see how you do. And I remember the first time I saw the armor that they made for her for this one. And I remember that first picture came out, and she was like standing on a pile of something, probably bodies, who knows. And it was really dark. And I thought, we need at least a little red, yellow, and blue in here. Like I wanted that. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, all right, I forgive you for that picture that scared me so much. But yeah, so I love Wonder Woman for the strength that she brings to everything. I like that she has this moral code, even though if you got to break it, you got to break it. I think that's just kind of human life. And yeah.
Did seeing or did you see Batman v Superman before the movie?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and she was in it at the end. Yeah. And I was like, awesome. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's right.
She was arguably the best part of the entire film.
Absolutely. And I was like, that, yeah. And I do remember seeing that and being like, okay, good. Let's see this movie now. Because I was like, that was awesome. That was badass. So, but yeah, I agree. That part of the movie, I don't know that I think I've watched that movie one other time. Like I watched it twice. And I think I only watched it the second time just to see her moment in it. So
the time with the three of them was the best part of the entire film. Outside of maybe the Batman warehouse fight, which was kind of badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, the time when all three of them are on the screen together was the best part of that entire film.
Yeah.
I must admit, I've not listened to our Two Towers review. I know we were very kind to it at the time. I haven't gone back to re-listen to it.
I didn't hate that movie, but I wasn't like,
right,
oh my God, this is my new favorite movie. I'm gonna watch it all the time.
I didn't.
No, I didn't like it very much. Over time, I've come to like it less, but I still love the Wonder Woman parts, and there were other things I appreciate. I appreciate what they were trying to do, even though I didn't think much of it worked. But okay, so yeah, I don't know. I remember watching Super Friends, but I can't say that Wonder Woman made much of an impression on me one way or the other. I was very much a Marvel guy. John knows what that means. I was into Spider-Man. And my parents would bowl on Friday nights, which was to say that was our babysitter night. And so our babysitter would do what most babysitters do, sit our butts in front of the TV so that they didn't have to watch us so much. And so on Friday nights happened to be when Wonder Woman was on. And it also happened to be when the Incredible Hulk and Dukes of Hazzard and Dallas were all on, which I plugged into all of those at various times. But Wonder Woman was one of the earliest ones that aired. And I took it all at face value. I very much enjoyed it. I do remember that Kathy Lee Crosby thing. I don't remember actually watching it. I remember kind of flipping around and being like, this looks dumb. And I don't know that I ever watched the whole thing. At that point, it didn't really mean that much to me. But yeah, the whole Linda Carter thing, I rolled with it. I was a little kid, so I took it at face value. The different time jumps and everything else as it played out over its 4 years, and then coming back to it, I can remember the Sci-Fi Channel picking up the Linda Carter show in the 90s, and watching it as an adult was a very different experience, because I think the general public has this idea of Linda Carter and what that show was and what it meant. And probably does not have a very strong memory of the reality of that show. Because it is such a mixed bag. I mean, I think it had a very strong first season in World War II. And then some of my favorite episodes are in season 2 when they jump to the present day. It was still pretty strong. And then you kind of watch it just kind of plummet off a cliff after that. It gets really bad for, I'd say half of its total run is really hard to get through. Even the things it gets credit for, I kind of have to roll my eyes, like that they gave her supervillains to fight and she had a rogues gallery. I'm like, yeah, but they were pitiful. Shields and Yarnell is a a termite lady or something. I mean, it was rough, but so I look back on it as potential, definitely iconic, but I don't think it was quite what it could have been there at the end of its run. I kind of wish it were better, but I do appreciate the cultural impact. And then like John mentioned, so after because I was a big comic collector, but I didn't really collect any DC. But then the Crisis books hit, and they started Wonder Woman over in 1987 with the George Perez run, and I thought, oh, issue 1, it's a complete and total wipe and restart. So that was a really great time. Let's see, 87, I'd have been my first year of college. I was very much into the hobby, and I'm like, this is a great time to finally jump in there. And as it happened, it was what, John, 67 issues. It ran 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, 61 issues, and it ran 5 years, which was amazing.
And that's my Wonder Woman, I guess. If I had to point it at what defines her for me, it was that comic run where they stripped it back to and tied the Greek mythology into it and gave it a really it read with a little more, almost like Clash of the Titans. Parts of it were like Clash of the Titans meets modern superhero. And I love the fact that they made her ambassadorial and trying to, like, she didn't go with the fists first, you know. She tried to talk her way out of situations, which that's going to come up later. But and then so I followed that up until the John Byrne run, which I didn't care for terribly much. I kind of jumped off at that point. And then the New 52, it was okay. I wasn't a big fan of it either. There's some more recent stuff I've seen some collections of that I like, but it was more frustrating for me to watch all of these attempts to make a movie fail time after time after time after time. Batman getting all of his movies, Superman getting all his movies. They could never get a Wonder Woman movie off the ground with the excuse that, audiences won't support a female-led hero, which I've never understood that argument. And I find it kind of ironic that when Wonder Woman came out in 2017, it was the third. Was it the third DCEU?
No, it was because we had Man
Suicide
of Steel,
Squad.
You had Man of Steel, you had Batman v Superman, you had Suicide Squad. And so,
Suicide Squad is the one I was forgetting. So this was the fourth movie, and DCEU was maybe going to completely fold if this was a bomb. And so all of a sudden there was all these predictions about how poorly it was going to do, but it had to succeed if this was going to continue. And I just thought it was so funny and kind of ironic that the movie that people had not a lot of faith in is the one that ended up saving the entire franchise at that time. And yeah, that's I think that brings us to queuing up the discussion on the movie proper, but that was my perspective. You guys talked a lot about the casting of Gal Gadot. I would just be repeating myself, but yeah, I was an early fan. I was willing to, I had my own ideas about who I wanted to play, but I appreciated that they got someone who I wasn't necessarily familiar with, because that's kind of the tradition, and I always like to see it when someone comes in and kind of makes a roll their own, and I was willing to give her shot, and she certainly exceeded expectations there. So yeah.
Well, I think that wraps up everything, and we can go and get deep dive into the Wonder Woman 2017 film. I will note that Gal Gadot was, the first time I saw her was not in Wonder Woman. It was actually in one of the Fast and the Furious movies. Now, it won't be a surprise to people who are familiar with our show that of the two of the towers, I'm the one who liked the Fast and the Furious movies, and RJ is the one who did not. And so I took note of her. I remembered her character. And then when it was time for them to release the casting for the film, I was like, oh, that's the lady, that's the woman from Fast and the Furious. And then I said, wow, yeah, I always thought she was really pretty in that movie. And I was thinking, okay, now I can see this. So I started putting it together or whatnot. And I will admit, I was like, wow, she's really slim. They're going to have to put her in the gym. And they did. And it worked out really well for me. But I just wanted to make that little note.
This concludes part 1 of a 3-part series covering Wonder Woman, from the comics to the TV show and the movies. Join us next week for Volume 2. Thanks.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.